What is up, Call of Duty fans? Welcome back to the channel. Good to see you. Sorry I've been so MIA. It's been crazy busy. I've got a lot of announcements coming up for you guys as far as new things that are coming down the pipeline. But specifically, as we get close and right around the corner now for CWL London, I've got two videos panned out for you guys. Obviously, this is the first one. I'm going to be taking a look at all of the teams that made roster changes. There were seven of them, and we're going to be taking a look at who we think did it best and who we think did it worst. And then beyond that, I'll be doing a power rankings video as kind of a predictions video that'll be servicing as who I think the top 16 teams are going in from 1 to 16, obviously how power rankings work. And then we'll also be doing pool predictions with that same video because the power rankings portion should go by pretty quickly. And we'll just kind of throw in some quick predictions as far as who I see doing what in the individual pools. This video, though, specifically taking a look at those 7 teams, like I mentioned, of who did it best and who did it worst as far as those roster changes. Again, one more roster change period is allowed, and that's coming just before Anaheim, before that's completely locked out. So there's a lot of things considering, a lot of things riding on some of these teams who took some pretty big gambles. We'll start at the very bottom. Who did it worse? Well, I don't think there'll be very many people to disagree with me. Elevate, I think 100% had the worst period of movement. Again, this is a squad that took over the Accelerate Gaming spot in the CWL, and they were a team that was Brack, Skies, M. Ruiz, Jet Li, and FaZe. They lose Brack and Jet Li and pick up Whalers and Breezy. Now, I think if anybody had been watching the CWL so far, you're looking at this the same way I am and saying, how do you lose Brack and Jet Li? This was by far the best part about what was the Accelerate Gaming roster. I don't think there's any doubt about that, in fact, because this Accelerate team, who did, by the way, almost go 4-0 in their cross-divisional play. I don't have it up there on the screen, but they went a 5-game set versus Red, a 5-game set versus Luminosity. Those are the 2 sets that they lost. And then they would win 3-0 against both UIU and Evil Geniuses. I mean, granted, 2 teams that they should beat, but the fact that they were able to take Luminosity and Red to 5, and then you just gave up your 2 best players, I'm not sure about this one. They will retain the 4-11 record that Accelerate has. That's good enough for 8th in Division B. A top 16 finish at Fort Worth is obviously merits some kind of an attention when it comes to changes, but these are not them. They'll be playing in Pool D, thankfully so. Will they be going up against Midnight, Heretics, and UIU? Midnight has still a lot of question marks about it. Heretics have shown themselves to be vulnerable in pool play before, and UIU, I think generally, is not the strong team that we were anticipating going into Fort Worth. So I guess that's the silver lining here, is that you're in an easier pool, but I still don't know if I see them winning a game with this roster. I think you're going to have a lot of question marks about just communications. I don't know how apt Whalers and Breezy are at English, but then beyond that, FaZe, Skies, and M. Ruiz have looked very okay at best, I would say, throughout the CWL. So my biggest question is, will Skies be switching back over to Maddox so Whalers can pull out the ICR like he has with the Nile in the past? Or will there be some kind of a swap up there in the main AR line? And who's going to be, I mean, I guess FaZe and Breezy are your SMG players? Like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this roster at all. There were so many better options that could have potentially boosted this team. The fact that you get rid of Brack and Jet Li, you don't get rid of Skies and M. Ruiz are big questions for me, because I think that's probably where the weakest two teammates were on this squad, and you're getting rid of your strongest. So it's a big yikes from me, my peeps. Going into the 6th spot, the 6th best, 2nd worst, however you want to phrase it. I've got the Nile sitting here, and again, I feel a little bit bad for the French players because nobody wanted to scrim these guys, and that's got to feel terrible, because I still believe, and those of you that have been following this channel since the beginning, I was all about this Nile team after the PLQ. I thought that they could very much so be a contender come the late portion of the year with apt practice. They didn't get any practice. Nobody wanted to play these guys, so you feel bad for them. Generally speaking, you know, they drop the entire French roster. They keep Zeke on as the substitute, and then they bring in what was most of Red Reserve previously with Alex and Brack. Yes, this is an upgrade technically from the Denial roster. They will be practiced and rehearsed more often against more high caliber teams than the old French roster was, but you still feel bad for this squad. And even though this is a better team, there are still big question marks for me in this squad. You simply think back to Red Reserve and all the communication issues and synergy issues that these guys had throughout the first half of the year, and you sit there and say, you have to hope, I guess if you're Nile, you're kind of taking a risk that Rated Joe and Bance are all on the same playing field and the same mindset of far as where they want to take a team for this title. Alex is an okay addition, and Brack is a good addition as well. So this team can do some work, but here's my biggest problem, is we're not going to get a true look at them because they're going into Pool B, which is against 3 of the best teams in the game, Gen G, Splice, and Luminosity. Good luck. I think it's the big question as far as will they get enough practice to take any of those guys down. Personally, I don't see them winning a game. So that's going to be tough. They might take a handful of maps, but I don't see them winning a set against that pool. And they'll be fighting through their lives, likely in the losers bracket against, again, teams that I think are better than this squad. So did they make better moves? Yes, technically. They gave the organization more hope in the future, but is this a playoff contending team? Or a championship contending team? I don't think so. And I think there were a lot of better options out there that they could have potentially gone for. But if you're going off of Rated Joe and Bance, you have to think that they had some say in who they wanted to pick up for this team. And you obviously get Alex, and then Brack is a solid pickup as well. But I'm wondering about synergy issues. I'm wondering about communication and if they can actually step up against what will be a very difficult pool for them. In my 5th spot, I've got UYU here, and I almost put them a little bit higher, but the biggest thing is I don't think they made enough moves is the biggest thing. And to be honest, the only sub out Knight for Royalty, it's not really, like, it's hard to really say definitively that that's an upgrade. Royalty has played okay, but he hasn't played great. He played better at Fort Worth with Evil Geniuses and better throughout the cross-divisional with Evil Geniuses, but this team still has big question marks up front. I would have liked to have seen them go for somebody like Jet Li as well, or even Decimate, just to try to make this roster top tier. For now, it might be a subtle upgrade, but the biggest question mark for me for this team still comes down to that SMG line. Proto and Royalty now together, I don't see them having a better time than Proto and Knight were. Flat out. I don't think I can say anything else about it. This was a team that did end up managing a top 12 finish at CWL Fort Worth, a 6-10 overall record, and they again will be going up against the easy pool of Group D with Midnight, Heretics, and Elevate. You figure they beat Elevate, they have a shot at Midnight, and here's another little thing. This UIU team has never lost to Heretics in the history of this title, so maybe there's an opportunity that this team can make it into the winner's bracket, but I think that you're not going to see the same kind of success against Heretics this time around with this roster from UYU. So my biggest thing is it's probably an improvement, I think, from Knight to Royalty, but it's not enough for me to merit them making a major move to be a major contender. It's going to be a lot of question marks, and will they be able to kind of garner that SOG line to produce more than, I mean, again, they had in the past, which wasn't really honestly all that much. In the 4th spot, as far as teams to make moves for this RosterMania period, I've got Evil Geniuses here. And it's hard to kind of rate this team because technically adding Phantoms, JCap, and Apathy into the roster of Attach and Exotic is good for this team. This will make this team better than a 2-13 team, which they currently are. Goonjar, Fellow, Royalty, they all had moments where they were good and they all had moments where they were bad. So I get getting rid of them. Attach has clearly, since being introduced to this roster, been the guy to go to as far as, okay, what are we going to do? It's kind of the Revenant Attach show here of who's going to be the player to really be the IGL and kind of determine how this team will play. And that's why I kind of like this roster, is I think that all of these 5 players are going to have a very similar mindset to how they've approached the game so far. Phantoms was a great player for FC Black. I think that he was one of the shining stars for that squad. JCap, there were issues with E United. I think he's going to be able to get humbled up and just play more in a team mentality with this squad. And Apathy, who's been struggling a lot of this game, will be brought into this roster with an opportunity to really kind of grow into this roster rather than being outshined by literally everybody else that was previously on that NV roster. So I think that this is going to bring a very teamco-centric mentality to the squad. And I think because of that, you'll start to see this team winning more games. The biggest thing is, will this team win enough games to make it worth our while? And the answer for me is going to be very questionable. I don't know if they will actually make enough moves. Again, they're in a very interesting pool, as being in Pool C of London will consist of E United with FaZe and Envy. Again, FaZe and Envy also making some considerable moves, as you're seeing it mostly here, with Apathy obviously being the first trade away for Envy, but there's more to come. So it'll be interesting because this is going to be a really good proving grounds, I think, for this Evil Geniuses squad in this pool specifically. Do I see them getting into the winner's bracket? I don't, but I do see them potentially finishing better than top 16, and to be honest, they'll win more than 2 games with this roster. So that's a big improvement, I would say, for Evil Geniuses. Is it enough to merit to be a major contender, though? I don't think so, and you'll see why as we go to our top 3. We'll be taking a look at FaZe Clan, which again was previously the red reserve slot. So really, as you kind of look at the leaves and joins, it's really Scraps and Zero that stay, and they pick up Zuma, Celium, and Asim from what was FaZe and FaZe Clan Black, and then they got retitled as FaZe Clan. So it's kind of a weird dynamic to look at this team as far as what their identity is, but technically this is the same spot that Scraps and Zero were in, and that's how they're able to retain the red reserve spot and all that kind of thing. So third place, bronze medal, best RosterMania so far. I would say FaZe Clan did a pretty awesome job at getting together a really solid roster. Celium, Asim, and Scraps, I think, are a super solid three-man front. And generally, you know, if most of you guys that watched my last RosterMania video, I had forgotten the fact that Zero had played a lot of AR in the previous titles. But again, that was previous titles. So there's still big question marks when it comes down to Zero in this title running an ICR with this team. And I think the biggest reasoning that I say biggest question mark is not necessarily that I'm questioning him, but I'm questioning how well he's going to play that role compared to other main ICRs in this game in the CWL. I think that he will do fine, but will he be good enough to really lock down that anchor spot against other very notable ICRs? And there's question marks. He very well could. He very well could be a top 5 ICR in the game for all we know. We just haven't seen it really all that much from Zero in the past. My other big question mark comes down to Zuma, because honestly during the PLQ he did not look great, and then obviously when he was subbing in for Optic, tough situation, but he didn't look that great then either. So a lot riding on the Z's of this team, I would say, between Zero and Zuma to step up and make sure that the rest of the team can move forward. Celium and Scraps are your for sure bets, I think, on this squad, no doubt about it. And Asim, bringing him into the mix, I thought he was by far the shining star at FC Black. Him and Phantoms both, I would say, were really, really strong contenders. So bringing in Asim and giving him a chance at the CWL, I think is really, really awesome for him. And I think he will step up to the plate. It just, for me, comes down to who's going to run what. Because even if Zero is the one player for sure running the ICR, you're still dealing with 4 players that could flex between Sogs and Maddoxes, which honestly might not be the worst case scenario for them. They'll be playing in a pretty tough pool, as well as they'll be again in United's pool with Envy and Evil Geniuses. So a lot of room for this team to kind of again prove themselves. And my question marks come down to, will they able to be a major contender so soon after the roster changes at London? I see them winning games. I just don't know for sure who they're going to be against, because this pool is such a mess when it comes down to being able to predict it properly, mostly because of all of the roster changes that have happened. So third place for me, I think that they could have done better. I think they could have done worse, flat out. Taking a look, though, at the number 2 team, I've got Team Envy here. That might cause a couple of controversies for you guys. Decimate is a huge pickup. And to be honest, at the beginning of this RosterMania was like, whoever picks up Decimate wins RosterMania, because he's been the biggest and best free agent out there since the PLQ. No one's been able to buy him out from G2. Team Envy finally gets him. But they match it up by bringing in also Pharaoh, who has been the center of questions for, I would say, the majority of his time in the Pro League, whether it was for the Pro League qualifier. Obviously, the early 100 Thieves had huge issues. They obviously come back and have huge success when they drop Pharaoh to the sub spot and Priesta to the main the main SOG spot. So it makes it look even worse for Pharaoh. Here's the thing, though. I still think Pharaoh could potentially be a top 20 player in the CWL. Which doesn't sound like much, but when you consider how many teams there are times that by 5, it's not bad at all. The fact that you might be able to sit there in the top 20 of all players. The biggest thing comes down to, will he be able to hold on with the roster of Aches, Silly, and Huke in the mix? I still think he's going to be the lowest man on the totem pole in this roster. However, if he's able to go into an environment that is not full of egos like 100 Thieves was at the beginning, maybe you don't get that side of, well, Pharaoh's toxic, whatever that was happening during the PLQ times and the Vegas times when 100 Thieves looked awful. Maybe he starts to shine a little bit. Maybe he can start to feel more comfortable. Here's the biggest thing about this roster, though. You're looking at Huke and Decimate. Those guys alone could carry this squad probably. And then you also have Aches and Silly, who have played very well throughout this game. Maybe some more question marks about Aches than for Silly. But regardless, this team should be very good. And for me, the biggest question mark comes down to, did they really make the best pickup bringing in Pharaoh, or was there somebody better potentially out there to fill in that roster spot that Apathy and Assault left? And honestly, I think there probably could have been a couple players they could have picked up, but generally speaking, this is a really solid roster. I'm very excited to see Decimate play again, and I'm hoping that Pharaoh can really kind of show up and show off. I mean, considering that he jumped in very late to the mix at Fort Worth because of Priesta getting sick, and well, we know what happened with 100 Thieves from that moment on. Then looking at the team that I think did it best, and again, maybe there's some controversy here, but I'll give you the reason why. Enigma 6, I think, had the best roster mania period. Picking up Jet Li and God RX, I think, is perfect for this team. I think, yeah, you would have loved to have gotten someone like Decimate, but I think Jet Li and God RX being in this mix makes this team devastatingly scary. Chino, again, was let go off of his own personal reasons. He wasn't like kicked from the team or anything. If you missed that, Chino on his own didn't want to play with these guys or whatever happened to be. He didn't want to play with the Enigma 6, so he was let go to free agency. Diabolic was dropped, so now General will be the ICR, which is what he's been wanting to play, really, you think, since the PLQ and even beyond that. He's been the main ICR player throughout the most of this game, and the fact that Chino was brought into the mix kind of made it very difficult for General to find a role as being that Maddox player that isn't really comfortable with the Maddox. So now you're looking at Kismet and Jet Li in the SOG line. Terrifying. Frosty and God RX in the Maddox line, both very aggressive player, and then General potentially locking down an ICR where he could be playing the anchor spot. This team's terrifying because of the fact that Jet Li and God RX are coming into a team that wants to play aggressive as aggressive-minded players. This is going to be a scary team. I'm really excited to see them play. They will be in Pool A versus 100 Thieves for an Optic and as well as Reciprocity. And again, most of this team already has experience against Optic and Reciprocity in recent history. As you take a look at their cross-divisional record, they took both of those teams to 5 games where they would lose 2-3. I think if you would have had this roster before, I think those games very well could have gone the other way. So this is a team that could potentially play spoilers. And if you overlook them, if you're 100 Thieves, Optic, or Reciprocity, I would not be strange to say that this team very well could make it into the winner's bracket and be a top 2 in the pool if they do get overlooked. So a lot of things coming. I know there was a lot of maybe controversy. I want to know your thoughts of ours. Who do you think did it best? I will again be bringing out the power rankings and full pool predictions tomorrow with that video, so make sure you stick around for that. And then beyond that, for CWL London, I'll be giving you guys recaps throughout every single day, recapping the day's events throughout the CWL tournament, as well as trying to keep track as best I can of the open brackets. So hopefully we'll catch you guys then as well. Keep tuned to the Twitter and all those things to get notifications when my videos do pop live. And until next time, hope you keep holding it down. Later, bye-bye.